The Journal of Jesse Smoke, Part 14, page 145. November 14, 1838. We are camped near Hopkinsville, Kentucky. Several parties have already passed through here before us, and they have excited the pity of the local townsfolks. Their newspaper, the Hopkinsville Gazette, contained an article urging the good people of the town to help us. Though we have been driven from our homes by the whites, we found the white people here sympathetic to our distress. They have brought food and clothing to our encampment, and made generous donations for our comfort. November 16, 1838. One child died today of whooping cough. Her smallness made the burial easier, for it was not so hard to find the boards for a coffin to dig a hole. Sat again with Jim Tiger. I spoke with him of how hard it was to see the sickness among our people. At least, he said, it is not smallpox. Then he related another tale of the removal of his Creek people. Jim Tiger's second story. A friend of Jim Tiger, who went by the name of Talladega Joe, told him this story. Talladega Joe was making his way back from the west to hide among the Cherokee. It was late December, and it was very cold, and he had lost the trail. Then, at midday, Talladega Joe saw a cabin on a hilltop with a wisp of smoke coming from the chimney. Though it was far away from him, Talladega Joe, who was blessed with great eyesight, could make out the figure of a thin, stooped Indian man with a blanket around his shoulders, sitting on a gallery porch. But as Talladega Joe started up the hill towards that cabin, the man who sat there saw him. The man stood shakily and waved at him to stop. The man, who was dressed in Creek fashion, pointed with his hand to the roughly fashioned flag that flew above the cabin. It was white with red spots painted on it. Then the man made signs indicating that he was not alone, that sick people were inside the cabin. Talladega Joe understood. The flag meant smallpox was there, that the Creek man was one of the party of scouts who had stumbled upon a cabin and found that the people within inside had an awful disease. They knew, as well as as do all of our Indian people, that to return to their people would mean they would bring terrible sickness, for which we have no cure, back among them. So the Creek scouts decided to stay in that cabin and wait for death. They had raised the warning flag, and they were keeping a watch to warn others away. His moist eyes, Talladega Joe turned his face away from the hilltop of self-sacrifice and continued on. When he had climbed another hill, he looked back across the valley and saw a pillar of smoke rising. Rather than take a chance that someone else might come up upon them and not be warned away soon enough, the dying Creek scouts set fire to the cabin. November 7th, 1838. We have passed Salem, Kentucky. We are approaching the Ohio River. There we shall cross over by flatboats to Golconda, Illinois. The weather is very cold. Ice has formed on our water kegs each morning. It seems that the rivers will freeze early. Some worry that we will be caught between the two rivers we must cross, the Ohio and the Mississippi. If there is floating ice, the ferries cannot run. We will then be forced to make camp until the ice clears from the river. I pray this will not happen, but progress of our long line of detachment has been painfully slow. This morning, before sunrise, I went to the water, a creek that has said to flow down the Ohio. I spoke to the old long man in Cherokee as the feeler had taught me. I asked that the Ohio take pity upon our people, and that we be allowed to cross the river. This was not, I think, a bad thing to do. Did not Moses himself ask the waters of the Red Sea to be parted, although the Israelites to pass to the other side? Still, I did not tell Reverend Foreman my actions. When I came walking from the stream, I found Elizabeth on top of the bank. The sun was rising behind her. She took me by the hand. We walked together without speaking back to the wagon where my mother and sisters had already harnessed up the team. With the cold weather, even more people are becoming ill. Never enough blankets, never enough fuel for the fires. The detachments behind will find even less after we pass. November 19th, 1838. Broke camp at 7 o'clock a.m. At 10 o'clock a.m. arrived at Berry's Ferry. Ice at the river's edge. but the floatboat ferry was running. The wind was calm, and the river was not all rough. Our crossing was a smooth one, though many of the people were afraid while out on Broad River. All wagons had been taken over by 6 o'clock p.m. We moved on an hour farther beyond the river to make camp for the night. It has been decided that we will make camp for several days here. Everyone in our party is too exhausted to press on quickly. The 3 detachments ahead of us have sent word back that they expect to cross the Mississippi within a few days. We will also wait to see how the Bushyhead group fares in crossing the Ohio. We pass them by on the road 3 days before our own crossing. November 1st, 1838. Snow upon the ground. Reverend Bushyhead's party took 2 days to cross the Ohio, but it is now on its way, about 10 miles behind us. We are also on our way again. It is our hope that the Mississippi will allow us to pass over its dangerous waters without incident, but the other couriers tell me that there is ice upon the great river and that the weather has grown even colder. November 25th, 1838. We are camped southeast of Vienna, Illinois, and is again Sunday, so we are not traveling. The 3 parties ahead of us have crossed the Mississippi, a perilous crossing with ice floating in the river. There are still 8 detachments behind us. The last of our parties to take this route by land is the one led by Richard Taylor and Daniel Buttrick. They have departed only 3 weeks ago. Our faithful chief, John Ross, like the captain who will not leave the bridge of his ship until the last are in the lifeboats, still remains in the nation. He is packing up the papers of our nation. He will engage a steamer to take him and his family along with those few remaining Cherokees who are too infirm or ill to go by land. They will go by river route to Little Rock. December 2nd, 1838. Our progress is astonishingly slow across the narrow neck of the Illinois between the rivers. To the east and the south of us is the Ohio, which is joined by the Tennessee before the 2 rivers flow into the Mississippi. There is no way out of this arc of land except to cross the river. Once again we are stopped, and we shall not travel because it is Sunday. But it seems that hurrying now will be no avail. I scouted ahead today with our light horse and saw the Mississippi River. Great blocks of ice are flowing down. The great river is growling like some huge and hungry beast as the ice scrapes the shore. 3 of our parties have crossed, but it seems we shall not. The ferries are not running. We are trapped. December 4th, 1838. There are 2 ferries crossing. The northern one is Cape Girardeau, Missouri. The second crossing is at Greens Ferry. Both are closed and will remain so until there is thaw. We are now all encamped and will remain so until the Mississippi sees fit to allow us upon her. It is very cold, much snow. Many are becoming ill in all 7 of our detachments held here by the ice. 5 died on our way to this encampment. It was hard to dig the graves with the frozen earth. We finally covered the shallow burials with logs and stones. My mother has visited the Bushyhead encampment to see her good friend Nanny, Reverend Bushyhead's sister. She is concerned. Nanny has a persistent cough and is quite weak. Reverend Bushyhead's wife is growing near her time and will probably give birth near the end of this month. December 6th, 1838. Rode out again to look at the Mississippi. As I sat on the bluff, a white bird flew overhead, heading west. The great river is no barrier to the flight of birds. They leave their homes and return again each year. But we Cherokees have no wings. We must suffer upon the ground when we are thrown from our nests. December 9th, 1838. 2 were baptized by Reverend Bushyhead today in a small river that flows into the Mississippi. 3 died yesterday. 1 was a girl baby born last night to Jane Nakey, wife of Longwind. 1 was Nick, a black slave, and 1 was Mary Welch, the white wife of John Welch, a formerly prosperous Cherokee plantation owner. The Welches had been married for 19 years. November 12th, 1838. Ice still chokes the great river, snow falling again. Many are sick from sleeping upon the frozen ground. December 16, 1838. assisted John Iron with blacksmithing. Many of the horses and mules need to be reshoed. There was also repair to be made on the metal parts of the wagons. Blacksmithing is one of those things I have often been curious about, and he was willing enough to teach me. At the end of the day, John Iron said I would make a good smith, for I am strong and my eyes are keen, and the fire does not seem to frighten me as it does many. December 25th, 1838. Christmas celebrated by the Christians among us. Few gifts to exchange other than the wishes of good health and good fortune. The singing of Christmas songs in Cherokee was quite beautiful, and even the weak among us seemed to grow stronger as the singing continued. One child born this day to Calasuti's family in Jesse Bushyhead's Baptist congregation. They named him Samuel. No wise men came to see him. January 1st, 1839. I pick up the journal again after having had little to say and even less time to write the last few days. Our camps have not been able to move, strung across the face of the southern Illinois like drops of water frozen on the window. But because we have not been able to move, because of the snow and cold, because of the sickness and the dying, because of the scarcity of firewood, all of us who are able-bodied have been busy each day. Many days have been spent riding for miles to find dry wood, and then load it into 2 wagons or drag it back to camp behind our horses and mules. Ancient Red has never been more needed by our people, for the tents and the blankets are too thin to keep out the wintry blast. We have had many funerals, far too many. I have stopped keeping count. Our hands, which once were very blistered from shovels, have now grown thickly calloused from digging so many graves. I have also been kept busy as a courier and also in scouting for supplies we may purchase. The cold weather seems to bother my mule Napoleon not one whit. And he is tireless, even as we go through the deep snow and have to ride far. The closest farms have run out of grain and corn to sell us. To their everlasting credit, these white farmers of Illinois have charged us no more than the fair market price for their corn and fodder, but they have no more, so we have had to range farther to supply food for our people and animals. Our hunters have also emptied the nearby forest of game. Some traveled 2 or 3 days to the north just to bring back a single deer. We have purchased some cattle and a few pigs from farmers. We have also purchased bacon and salt pork. All of us exist now on much less food than any time in our journey. Many are suffering from the flux. Today, the weather began to change. I felt a warmer breeze. When we rode to the great river and looked out, we saw the ice was clearing from its muddy face. There are no new floes in sight coming down the river. The ferrymen say they will risk a crossing tomorrow. January 4th, 1839, Jackson, Missouri. We are in camp here. Our crossing took 2 full days. Reverend Bushyhead was set to cross behind us, but we did not wait for his party. Instead, we moved on as quickly as possible. Our hunters left a space of 12 miles behind us, in which the later groups might find game. January 5th, 1839. My mother received a message from Reverend Bushyhead. His beloved sister, and her dear friend Nanny, died on January 4th after crossing the Mississippi. During the same crossing, Reverend Bushyhead's wife gave birth to a daughter. They named her Eliza, Missouri, Nova ex Virtus. January 8, 1839. I have mentioned the blacks among us who are slaves. Often their masters treat them much like family members, although when it comes time for gathering wood or making meals, it is usually the blacks who do it. One of the young women, named Flora, she has been a friend to my 2 little sisters. When she was not working, she spent time playing and talking with them. Today we bade her farewell, but not but it was not a sad farewell. A white man who visited our camp on his way back home to the south recognized her. She had been sold from the plantation of his father to a wealthy Cherokee man some 8 or 9 years ago. He informed her that her family was still alive and well, including her parents. If she wished to return home, he told her, he would purchase her from her Cherokee master. She was eager and excited to do so, and her own owner was agreeable. Before she left, she reached into her apron and took out a packet. It contained hollyhock seeds she had gathered from flowers grown in the earth of our lost Cherokee nation. She gave each of my sisters a small handful of those seeds, urging them to plant them in their new home in the West. That way, she and our memory of the land would be with us each spring.